Hey everyone, welcome to another top 10 list. This week's top 10 list is the top 10 longest used designs on currency for the US. Top 10 designs longest used on US currency. Now, that doesn't take into account if there was a series change or if there was a change in the location of a stamp or something to that effect. We're talking about the total design of the note in and of itself. So it doesn't matter if there was a series A, B, C, D. That's the same note. Maybe I'll do top 10 series later on, but this is just the specific design for the top 10 longest used designs on US currency. And I've got a couple honorable mentions, so let's get started right away with those. First honorable mention, this is the 1899 mini porthole note. This is the $2 silver certificate. Now, the $2 silver certificate, this particular note was first put out in 1899 to replace the educational series. Now, with it coming out in 1899, when was the next $2 silver certificate issued? Well, there wasn't. But this is a large size note, and all large size notes were taken out of circulation in 1928. So technically, this note was good from 1899 until 1927, giving it a run of roughly 28 years. So 28 years on this particular design. That's my first honorable mention. My second honorable mention. This is the 1869 design for the $10 legal tender. The $10 legal tender design. Now, this came out in 1869, and then in 1874 they did away with the color on the back, but the design itself stayed the same. And this was used, this was used all the way until 1900. So you're talking from 1869 to 1900 on this. And those of you who remember, this is the jackass note with that eagle there. And if you flip it upside down, it becomes a donkey. Take a peek at the back of this one there. Anyway, the jackass note, the $10 legal tender, like I said, came out in 1869, and this was good until it was replaced by the bison in 1901. So you're talking 1869 to 1900, or a period of 31 years. So that's also an honorable mention. Next honorable mention, this is the $10 silver certificate. Now, the $10 silver certificate, this note first came out in 1886. The 1886 silver certificate, this is known as the tombstone note because it has Vice President Hendricks featured on it, the tombstone design here, and it came out the year after he died. He did die in office in 1885. So this is the 1886 $10 silver certificate. Now, as far as silver certificates go, 1886 is when this one came out. The next series that came out was the educational series in 1896, and they did not make a $10 note for production. So there was no replacement there. And then the 1899 series, once again, was to replace the educational series, so there was no $10 note there. That means that this particular silver certificate was good from 1886 until when they got rid of the large size notes, which was in 1928. So 1886 to 1927 would be the range on this, and that spans 41 years with this particular design. And finally, on the last of the honorable mentions, a lot of you may have seen this particular one. It's a $2 bill, the Federal Reserve $2 bill. Now, I want to specify the Federal Reserve note $2 bill on this particular one, because even though it is a small size and even though there are red seals and there's other ways to have this particular note, I'm talking about the Federal Reserve note itself. The $2 Federal Reserve note, now this came out with this background, of course. This came out in 1976. Now, with it being out in 1976, you may think, well, what did they replace it with? And they didn't. This is still in circulation today, this particular design. You can see this one here says 2003 on it. The design has not changed since 1976, which puts this particular note at 45 plus years. 45 years as of this filming, and they haven't changed it yet. So yeah, those four were all my honorable mentions. So now we get to the top 10. What do I start my top 10 off with? Well, number 10 on my list. This is a $1 legal tender. The $1 legal tender, this came out in 1869, and it had the rainbow background. Minus the rainbow background, this note remained unchanged all the way until, where do I have it on here? Until 1922. The 1923 legal tender looks like the larger version of what we currently have today, and that just had a red seal on it. Now, this particular note, like I said, came out in 1869, was used until 1922, giving it a total run of 53 years. 53 years with this particular design. They did make a few changes as far as location of the seal, but the design itself, that would be from 1869 to 1922, spanning a total of 53 years. That's number 10 on my list. Number 9. One of the most exciting bills you're going to see because it's in your pocket. This is a $1 Federal Reserve note. I'm sure you guys are all very familiar with this note because you've got a bunch of them in your pocket and you see me go through thousands of them every week. The $1 Federal Reserve note. Now, the thing is, this design for a Federal Reserve note came out in 1963. That was the first time it was used. A lot of you are going to say, oh no, that's the same as the 1928 red seal and the 1928 silver certificate. And actually it's not. They are similar, but they are different designs. And like I said, this is a Federal Reserve note, not a legal tender, not a silver certificate. So the Federal Reserve note for the $1 design came out, like I said, in 1963, and it's the note we currently use today, which puts it at, where is it? 58 years plus. 58 years plus in service. So yeah, that's number 9 on my list. Number 8. Number 8, very few people have ever seen this particular note. This is a $20 legal tender. It's a note that you don't see a whole lot. I rarely see one of these at shows. It's a rather expensive note, so people tend not to get it. And with this particular note, let's see, what do I got? The $20 legal tender initially came out in 1869. It was a rainbow. All the 1869s came out with a rainbow pattern. And minus the rainbow, this note was in use until 1928. In 1928, that's when they came out with the small size notes, so they didn't need the large size anymore. So you're talking 1869 to 1927 for the official run of this particular note. Once again, that puts this at 58 years in circulation. So yeah, that's number 8 on my list. The legal tender $20 note from, well, like I said, 1869 to 1927. That's number 8. Number 7 on my list. Number 7 is another legal tender. This is a $5 legal tender. Now, once again, I know I'm repeating myself, but this came out in 1869, also a rainbow note. The rainbow design was dropped, but the rest of the features were the same. There was slight changes to the seal and slight changes to the locations of the V and stuff like that. But other than that, the actual design of the note remains unchanged from the 1869 version. Take a peek at the back of this one here. This is the $5 legal tender. Now, the $5 legal tender, like I said, came out in 1869 and was not replaced until they did away with all of the large size notes. So once again, you're talking from 1869, it was replaced in 1928. So 1869 to 1927 gives us a span of 58 years that this note was in service. So that's number 7 on my list. Number 6. Number 6. Also part of that legal tender series. This one actually has the rainbow backing on it. The $2 legal tender starting in 1869. The $2 legal tender note, once again, was not replaced until they got the small size notes in. So this particular design is the same design from 1869 all the way to 1927. 1928, they came out with small size notes, but from 1869 to 1927, this is what all the $2 legal tenders look like. That puts this also at a run of 58 years unchanged. Well, like I said, with the exception of the rainbow disappearing, the rest of the pattern is the same. So that is number 6. Number 5 on the list. Number 5 probably looks familiar to you. This is the small-head $20 bill. Small-head $20 bill. These came out in 1928. The Federal Reserve Note 1928 small-head $20 bill, of course, started in 1928 and lasted until they did the monochrome notes. The monochrome notes for the $20 bill came out in 1996. So you're talking 1928 to 1995 was the run for the small-size $20 bill, small-head $20 bill. That gives you a run of over 67 years. And you can still find some of these in circulation today. But to know that these were in circulation for 67 years, unchanged, yeah, we were due. We were due for a change, that's for sure. So that's number 6 on my list. Sorry, that's number 5 on my list. Number 4. And like I said, some of these notes may not be very surprising in appearance because they're very familiar. You've handled most of these. What is surprising is how long they've been in service. So like I said, that was the $20 small-head Federal Reserve. Number 4. Number 4, we're going with the small-head $100 bill. Small-head $100 bill first came to be in 1928 with all the other small-size notes. The small-head, whenever we say small-head, of course, we're referring to the smaller head here versus the larger head that we have in our modern currency. The $100 Federal Reserve note came out in 1928 and was in service until 1996 when they brought out the large head monochrome $100 bill. So you're talking a span from 1928 to 1995, basically covering 67 years. So yeah, this note in service 67 years. That is number 4 on the list. Number 3, staying with the small size currency, this would be the $5 Federal Reserve note. $5 Federal Reserve note also came out in 1928 with the small heads series. Now, the $5 note hung around a little bit longer than some of the others. This particular one came out, like I said, in 1928 and was not replaced until 1999. So from 1928 to 1998, you're talking a total duration of 70 years for this particular note. 70 years without changing this particular design. And yeah, you guys know what these all look like here, of course. That is number 3 on the list. Number 2. Number 2 would be the small-head $10 bill. Small-head $10 bill, the Federal Reserve note, once again came out in 1928, and we held on to this design all the way up until 1999 when it was replaced by the monochrome. The $10 Federal Reserve note, 1928 to 1998 was the time of the reign of the small-head $10 bill. That gives us a grand total of 70 years in circulation with this particular design. Yep, definitely needed a change. Very classic looking note, but yeah, after 70 years, let's see what else we can do. And that was number 2 on my list. What do I have for number 1? Well, you probably know what it is, but do you know how long it was in circulation? That is the big question. Number 1. The small-head $50 bill. The small-head $50 bill, this one also came out when the small-size notes came out. That was 1928. But the $50 bill took the longest to replace. The $50 bill, this design for the $50 bill wasn't replaced until 2004. 2004 was the first year that you had the large head monochrome 50. And that means from 1928 until 2003, if you had a $50 bill, it looked like this. That means that this $50 design was in service for 75 years. 75 years with the same design, and yet you can still find them in circulation today. Like I said, these came out in 1928. We're just a few years away from having notes that are over 100 years old still being in circulation. So take that, coin collectors. The 1928 design of the $50 bill 75 years later was still in service. So that's my top 10 list for this week. Those are the top 10 longest running designs on our currency. If you guys learned anything new, please hit that like button. If you like what you see and you want to see more, please subscribe. I love reading your comments. If you have an idea for a top 10 list, don't forget to put that down on the bottom. If I use your list, I'll make sure to put your name in here as well. Guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next week.